Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Identity Project. Today, I have a very special guest, somebody that actually went to TWU as well, and is a registered dietitian, a really just a badass. I've been listening to her podcast lately. I've been listening to her story, and really, you're just extremely inspiring. And I'm so happy to have you on the show. So, Lacey Dunn, what is going on?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor and a pleasure, and I'm excited to chat with you. Yeah, I'm a registered dietitian. I became one back in September, finally, after like 5 years of schooling, and it is the best life. So I'm very, very thankful for my job and this being my career.
That is so awesome. Congratulations. I know that
Thank you.
is quite a bit of work to go through. I did not pursue the RD route, but I have coaches on staff, and I know I've talked to them about their journey, and it is a lot. That is for sure. So congratulations. I know that's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. It is a lot.
And as I was listening through your story, and we'll kind of dive in today, like it wasn't like you were just going to school full time and that's all you had to handle. You were a little bit of a superhero. I feel like you had a lot of things going on. Kind of reminded. So when I was going through school, I was working like 50, 60 hours a week. I was competing in CrossFit. Like I had competed at regionals at that time. So definitely was kind of, I had a lot to handle, if you will. Right. So, but let's dive into your story, because that's kind of staying true to the platform here and what we do. So the Identity Project is all about sharing stories that inspire. And so I think you have a very inspiring story. So where were you born? Where did you grow up at? And where were you, what kind of kid were you like growing up in your elementary school days, middle school days?
Well, thank you. So I grew up in Peachtree City, Georgia, a very sheltered kind of town. And growing up, I was very much quiet and shy, and I had a few friends, but actually people don't know I was actually bullied as a kid. So honestly, that kept me kind of like down low and prevented me from really embracing who I was. And so growing up, it was kind of just like me focusing on schooling and then having fun with like a couple of my little friends here and there. So that's where I was, Georgia, Peachtree City, Georgia. And it really took up until, high school days where I broke the mold, because of course, I continued to be kind of bullied as a cheerleader still. I left high school early and I went to college. And I did dual enrollment. I don't know if anybody knows about dual enrollment, but you can do high school and college courses at the same time. So I did like one class in high school, then did courses at my local community college. And it really took doing that and stepping away from school and focusing on my all-star cheerleading, which is like kind of like a rec division. But anyways, I did the all-star cheerleading, and that's when I was able to really focus and be who I was and find who I was and be me. So that's just a little bit of my background growing up.
That's awesome. So what was it that you got bullied for? I mean, growing up, I'm sure it was different with like cheerleading, but like, I mean, what was it in elementary school and middle school?
I didn't really fit in. I loved studying. I loved reading, and I obviously did not fit the mold for my hair, and I had a short little bob, and I was always made fun of for it, called a boy, and I had, my clothing was not the in clothing, and it was rough. I got bullied by a Down syndrome girl, and there was actually two of them that bullied me, and nobody ever believed me that I was getting bullied by these girls. So that was honestly like traumatic for my first, because I always ended up in their classes from third, fourth, and fifth grade. So that prevented me from actually having friends, because the girls would make sure that I wasn't able to be friends with anybody in that class that they wanted to be friends with. And so it took into getting out of their classes in middle school to be able to start building upon my friends list.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think back to like well, first off, most of the time when I bring guests on, it's like when we go all the way back to elementary school days, middle school days, it's like I don't even remember back then. So I'm glad that you did. But
I
yeah,
mean,
I
you
mean,
asked, I didn't know how detailed you wanted, so I just said it.
yeah, no, that was good. I mean, a lot of people when I take them back, they're like, I haven't thought about this in forever. Like I haven't even thought about this before. But
I
um,
remember.
I mean, bullying was like something, obviously that happened for a lot of people throughout those years, and just kind of like, you know, I talk about like kind of the identity crisis, or like going through all these different identities throughout your life, and kind of figuring out what shaped you into who you are
Mhm.
today. So knowing that you got bullied so much growing up, and then like just knowing what you do now and the impact you're making in the world now, it's cool, because it's like it's almost going from this like introverted, like not a lot of belief in oneself, and then it's like now maybe you're still introverted, but you're
Oh, yeah.
making a huge impact in this world, and like I don't think you are shy or really care what other people think now these days, right?
No, it's definitely, how I grew up definitely forced me to cultivate who I was and my own belief process, and my thoughts, and really made me own who I am, especially going from, going to University of Central Florida for my first year of college, and then people not really understanding or respecting the fact that I wanted to do weight training and get into bikini competitions. Um, it really forced me to just be myself and realize that, hey, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about me. If they don't believe in me, it's the fact that I believe in me. The passion was placed in my heart. I need to understand that, and I need to follow that, because nobody else is going to understand something that's not in their heart.
Hmm. I love that. So talk to me a little bit about your parents. How did you, I mean, are they what shaped you into who you are today, or what? I mean, I just like hearing about like how much you were handling in terms of like school, and like, I mean, I think you did like really, really well in school, it sounded like. And then you had like a million things going on top of that. So like, what were your parents like? Did they instill this like type of discipline in you? Were they super smart? Like, kind of talk to us about them.
My parents are fantastic. They're my best friends. I love them. I'm so thankful for them. They've always supported me. They've always gone above and beyond to help me. So just give you an example. So growing up, of course, like I said, I did the dual enrollment. So in high school, I really wanted to be on a top cheerleading all-star team. And in order to be on the top team, I would have to, do a 3-hour trip 2 to 3 times a week. So that was 3 hours one way, 6 hours in one day. And my parents actually, my dad got my mom a Prius. So we would save in gas. And then she drove me 6 hours 3 times a week to be on this cheerleading team. And I would study in the car, and we would drive like that 3-hour trip. I would cheer, and then she would drive while I slept on the way back, because it would be like 10 p.m. to like 12 a.m. in the morning getting back, and then I would go to school, go to my classes in the morning. And I'm just very thankful the fact that they would even do that. Like, that's crazy to me, but they've always believed in me, and I've always put in, the effort to make sure that whatever I had in my heart and whatever goal I had, it would be able to be made happen. And I'm very thankful. My dad he's taught me growing up to be very frugal. And I'm beyond thankful for that. He's taught me to save, to invest. And I think that's a large part of who I am today is, I'm not ever materialistic or anything like that.
Wow, that's so cool to hear. I mean, that's awesome. Like I think about my parents, and it wasn't a 6 hour commute. That's pretty crazy. But I was very involved in baseball, and at one point I was playing like 160 games a year, and
That's a lot.
I know, and just them driving, taking me to practice games, like all that type of stuff. And I had other brothers and sisters as well, and so it's amazing what parents do for us now, becoming a parent myself 6 weeks ago. And so yeah, it's a whole nother world. It's like you would do anything for them.
Yeah. I would do anything for my cats.
Oh man, that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about like, did you were you playing sports and things like that, or was cheerleading kind of like the first like sport you got into, if you will?
Yeah, cheerleading is all I did. I started cheerleading in fifth grade of elementary school. And then I continued cheerleading up until my second year of college. I did both a combination of high school cheerleading and all-star cheerleading. Majorly, it was focused on all-star cheerleading. And that was the best experience. That honestly, that's really what shaped and molded who I am.
What lessons did you take away from cheerleading? What did you, if somebody asked like, I don't know, your top 3 lessons that you learned from all of your years and cheerleading, what would you say?
Dedication, perseverance, and loyalty. Those are the 3 things I would say I learned. And I also learned how to interact with others, and it really brought me out of my little turtle shell. If it wasn't for cheerleading, I would not be who I am today. I would still be an introverted, little shy, little turtle.
That's so funny. I'm curious, what made you want to do cheerleading in the first place? Like,
So I did ballet in elementary school, and my mom placed me in tumbling classes to be a better dancer because they wanted me to tumble in the Nutcracker, which is a ballet. While I was doing the tumbling classes, I started having fun and enjoying it. And then one day I saw the cheerleading team. And it was funny as I had always made fun of cheerleaders. And I saw them practicing and I saw them doing stunts, which is where they throw people up in the air. And I was like, oh my God, I want to try that. So I got to try it. I did some private lessons and then I started cheerleading and I kind of fell in love with it, with the all-star cheerleading. I still made fun of the high school cheerleaders, which is funny because then I became one. But that's what got me into cheerleading.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So it was almost like I mean, the tumbling aspect. So it was very like heavily involved in like gymnastics is what you really like enjoyed. Did you ever want to get in and actually do like specifically gymnastics or?
I did, and I did do a couple gymnastics classes, but it was too expensive for my parents.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. So I'm assuming you went and cheered then in college. Is that right?
I did, yes. I went to the University of Central Florida.
Got it. And then you studied, at that point, did you know that you wanted to study nutrition like in high school, or is that something you found after like doing basics or?
No, I actually thought I wanted to be a researcher, a cancer researcher. So I was doing biomedical science, and I loved those classes. It was great. It was hard, but it took up until, I was doing my research. So to make the University of Central Florida team, I did a lot of research and I had to build my body because I was a tiny little stickling, still am, but I really had to gain muscle. So I had to do a lot of research, learn about nutrition, and in doing that, and then with my grandma being diagnosed with colon cancer, I started doing more research on preventative care, how I could help her in regards to, her therapies and help my family and prevent people from getting like things like cancer and chronic disease like diabetes. And I was just blown away by the power of nutrition. And it really was like a split second. One day in the middle of one of my lab classes, I was like, what am I doing? I know exactly what I want to do and who I want to be. I was like, I got to transfer schools. I got to go somewhere because UCF, University of Central Florida, didn't have nutrition. And I was like, I want to be a dietitian. It was literally out of nowhere.
Wow.
And it was such a life-changing experience. But it's really funny because I have a Facebook post on my Facebook, and it like pinpoints the exact day in my thoughts and the fact that it was like random. So I love going back and looking at that because I'm like, yep, that was the day I had that spark.
That's so cool. I love hearing stories like that because it's like there's no like rhyme or reason. It's just like it just happened, and like how much of it now reflecting back do you think to yourself like, everything that you went through growing up almost kind of enabled you to do what you are doing today? Because I mean, essentially you got bullied pretty much growing up, and then now you empower other people to live their best life essentially.
Yeah, every single thing that I have gone through has made me stronger and has helped develop who I am today. I 100% believe that. Anything that I've gone through and anything that anybody goes through, I like to say, think of it as a blessing in disguise, because really everything that you fight develops your strength. And people know that, but honestly, I wouldn't take anything back.
Yeah, I love that. Has your faith been shaped from a young age, or is that something you found later in life? Or
So I was always my parents, they're very faith-based. My family's very faith-based, but I never really had that connection with God and with Jesus until I actually, I left high school. It really took being thrown into the abyss, being alone, and having to really, because, at UCF, my first year of college, I didn't have that many friends. The cheerleading team didn't support me and my goals. So it really took finding who I was in Christ to really be able to have that firm relationship with him.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. So when you I just think about environment, right? And I think about you're being affected, or you're having these opinions from like the cheerleaders, and really you don't have a lot of friends there. And so, so many people in that time could probably say, you know what, like I want to try to go identify with that environment. I'm going to give up on this goal so that I can be like other people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And for you to just kind of stay true, especially at such a young age, to like what you believed in and what you wanted out of life. Was there ever any like hesitation on that? Was there ever, a moment where you're like, well, maybe I should, try to be more like them or whatever?
No, there was never. Whenever I have a set goal in my head, I go after it. With things like I wanted to go to college early. So I did. I didn't give two craps about what, the other people thought about me. I just went. When I decided, hey, I want to do a bikini competition. Hey, people don't support me. That's okay. My mom supports me. Jesus supports me. It doesn't matter. So it's been fantastic to be able to know that outside influences do not affect me.
That's amazing. I think that's
It's
something
not
that,
easy.
yeah, definitely not easy. I think that's something everybody strives to be more like, and, to not let those outside influences come in, or not compare ourselves to others. It's like, it's like almost like self-sabotage in a sense. You hear like comparison is the thief of joy, but yet we find ourselves doing it so many times.
Yeah, hands down. I still sometimes I'll compare myself. We're all guilty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're human beings, right?
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your time kind of going through school and going through your different internships, and then really just like how you ultimately got to where you are now.
So I would say my years at University of Georgia were actually not bad. They were kind of like not easy, but they're pretty good. Undergrad was just fine, but moving to Houston, Texas from Georgia, and then starting my dietetic internship and doing a lot of things on top of that was a little bit crazy. And you've kind of like briefly discussed what I went through. So I did my dietetic internship, which was 4 days a week, 8 to 9 hours. And so that was Tuesday through Friday. And then on top of that, getting my master's degree. And then on top of that, being a full-time online coach. Not saying to try to balance all of that at once, because it definitely affected my health, but I did it. I persevered. I pushed through it. I made it happen. And that's honestly one of my like best accomplishments. One of the things I'm most proud for is balancing and making all that happen at once. It was tough. It was a lot of days to where, waking up at like 6:30, 7 a.m., getting home at like 4:35 p.m., studying for an hour and a half, eating while I'm studying, going to the gym, coming back, eating, answering emails, studying again, going to bed at 11, waking up the next day. It was just really, really repetitive, and it did take a lot of work. And honestly, it was a very, very draining experience. But I learned so much, not only about myself, but obviously about nutrition, exercise, and that is honestly what really helped me figure out what I wanted to do as a dietitian.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that, if it was easy, everyone would have done it. It's like a lot of the times it's not just as simple as, oh, I just get to go to school and focus on just that. And like mommy and daddy pay for everything. Like sometimes it's like, no, like I got to like bust my ass. I got to like put in some serious, serious work. And I love what you said in one of your podcasts. It's just like, if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in yourself, if you have a mission and like you'll do it. Like you'll do what it takes. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the times, especially these days, it's like we're trying to find, all these different strategies and all these ways to like stay consistent with habits and whatever else. And it's like, ultimately you just have to be ready to actually do what you're going to say you're going to do. Like, even if you go hire a coach, like that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like you still have to put in the work, like you're paying to play, So
People will plan ahead, people will make strategies, but in the end, you just have to make it happen. You have to do the work.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was the exact line. You just have to make it happen. I love that. So I guess one big question obviously is like, a lot of registered dietitians, they like work in, a clinical setting. So why did you choose to, and I think I know just based off listening to a few of your podcasts, but why did you choose to kind of go the route that you did?
So I at first wanted to go the whole clinical route. I loved clinical to the point where I loved learning. I loved the different diseases and getting to interact with some nurses and doctors and getting to be in that learning environment. However, there was two major points to why I didn't want to do clinical. Number one, the lack of patient interaction. So if people don't know, clinical dietitians for the most part are focusing more on typing up care plans, and we were in a basement. We did not see the light of day. So it was majorly during the day, typing up care plans, clicking here, this is their weight, usually body weight, ideal body weight. This is the exact formula they need for their enteral or parenteral nutrition. And then going upstairs to see them for like 15 minutes max. And you cannot develop a relationship with your patient in 15 minutes. You can't really help them form sustainable habits in 15 minutes. And it made me really sad to go in there and just like provide them a handout and be like, all right, try this, good luck. That doesn't help them at all. So it made me realize, hey, this is not what I want to do, because I love forming that relationship. I love seeing people grow, and I love having them develop and cultivate healthy and sustainable habits. And you can't do that in 15 minutes. I also hated how going into clinical, it was like more about the number of patients that you saw in a day and less about the quality of your work or the quality of helping others. And that really bothered me. I hated, it being all about numbers and all about how many people you can write a note in a day. Like that's just ridiculous. It was just about, insurance reimbursement basically. And then the second thing is clinical dietitians are paid crap. Like they are not paid well, which is ridiculous because, my master's degree and internship was $30,000 and they pay you, my roommate gets paid about $42,000 a year. She has a master's degree. That's crazy. That is the amount my sister as a teacher who has a bachelor's gets paid, and she gets 3 months off a year plus weeks. That's crazy. That should not be the same.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. A lot of those reasons were huge reasons and why I decided not to go the route, because it was just like, so my wife is a nurse. She works in oncology. And when I'm in a hospital, I literally, like, even when I was there for 2 days, 3 days when we had our child, like, I don't know what it is, the lights, being in a hospital, I have no idea, but I literally feel like I just feel like I start getting like depressed or like sad. Like I'm like, get me out of this place.
You're like I was.
Yeah, I hate hospitals. I don't like them. Where, Alex loves them, and seeing what she does with oncology patients is, amazing. But yeah, I completely agree with a lot of those things, and a lot of those things were exactly why I didn't go that route. And I also had I had started doing personal training from the very beginning of school, and so at that time was doing pretty good and had just gotten married, and I was going to have to do like the unpaid internship. And I was like, I would lose all my clients, and all. I was like, I can't do it.
And it's
Anyways,
not even
but
that it's unpaid, it's you pay to do the internship.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know it's different. I don't know how it was out there, but I know it's different at different schools in different states
Hmm.
and things like that. But yeah, this guy right here, because I was in school for 6 years to finish my bachelor's, because I only took like 10 hours every semester because I was like working so much. I just look at it, I'm like, yeah, I paid like $60,000 for my nutrition degree, and I'm just like, whew, that's a lot, because a lot of people ask about that, right? They're like, do I need to get a nutrition degree? Do I need to become an RD? What's the difference in getting a nutrition certification? What's your opinion on all of that, by the way? Like, what's your opinion on kind of like RDs versus nutrition coaches and like certifications versus degrees?
I'm glad you asked because I think I'm one of the RDs that have a different opinion. So I love the fact that I'm a dietitian. I wouldn't take away what I've learned. I love the fact that I have a master's in nutrition. But in the end, there's a lot of people who are not registered dietitians who know a lot about nutrition. And everything that I've learned in regards to physique management and everything that I've learned in regards to functional medicine or integrative nutrition has been my own research. I didn't learn any of that in schooling. So really, if you just want to be an online, health coach, a nutritionist, quote unquote, you want to work with physique athletes, going to be a dietitian is going to be a lot of clinical work. And yes, you're going to learn about a lot about metabolism, but you're going to learn more about chronic diseases. You're going to learn more about food service management, food safety. So in the end, it's going to be, what is your goal? Who do you want to work with? And knowing that as long as you stay in your lane, I would rather people focus on learning about what they want to learn about and what their focus is. So if their goal is physique athletes, go learn about physique athletes. Go learn about metabolism and how it changes the body. Do your research. Follow people like Alan Aragon, Lyle McDonald, because you're not going to learn about that stuff to be, becoming an RD. I don't care if you're not a dietitian. I don't care if you are a dietitian, that's not going to, it doesn't make you high and mighty because you are a dietitian. So just go the path you want to go and just make sure you're staying in your lane. So obviously, you can't order blood work if you're not a dietitian. You don't need to write meal plans for somebody who has type 2 diabetes or something if you're not a dietitian. So I have no problems with people, not being a dietitian. And if you don't want to go the whole clinical route, then maybe it may not be for you unless you want that credential like I did.
I love that. I think that's a phenomenal way of summarizing that answer. I mean, I think that's exactly it. It's all about like, who are you, and like knowing yourself and what you actually want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I feel like some people maybe learn later on after experiencing it. And I think for me, I just wish that I would have maybe done my homework more in terms of talking to other registered dietitians and talking to people that had done what I wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
before I just jumped in it, without knowing anything. So I love that. One thing I do want to kind of point out, and that you just mentioned, was staying in, your own lane and, not going outside of your scope. And so like with social media these days, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm sure you see it, that's posted on, Instagram. Let's just use that platform because it's most popular. But like a lot of the nutrition coaches, if you will, are diving into a lot of topics that, you know, I guess dependent upon how they talk about it, maybe they don't have business going down that route, right? It's actually kind of a little out of their scope sometimes. So what's your advice for just, the general population that's scrolling through Instagram, and like maybe some advice for them as to how to, I don't know, kind of dissect or follow people that, are science-based, research-based, and not just like putting out whatever?
I would say ask questions. Ask people where they got their information. how do they study? Do they use textbooks? Do they use, books that were made by people like, trying to think of somebody specific, like the Plant Paradox? Do they read crap like the Plant Paradox or the Longevity Diet? I forgot who wrote that book, but overall, are they using research articles and textbooks? And if so, what is their background in their education? Do they at all have a bachelor's degree? Do they know how to even read research? So there's things that you have to ask, and also keep in mind if anybody's saying things like XYZ works, or they're claiming big things that can change you, your life, your physique, you got to look at things like, in the end, it's not black and white, and there's not one exact answer to things. And if somebody is claiming that, then it's probably not right, because if there was a magic pill or one magic thing that we can make happen, everybody would know about it and everybody would be reaching their goals. And that's not happening, because there's like a huge amount of the US population is overweight and doesn't have any exercise routine. So there's no magic pill. There's no easy, quick fix that you can make happen, and just stay away from people who say that, because that's how you can kind of say, oh, they don't know what they're probably talking about.
Yeah, I love that. Another great answer. I just see it so much now, and it's like, I guess because anybody can go in and log in on PubMed, they post this, they post that. And it's like, that's one thing that Stephanie and Ellen and I talk a lot about with just like the research aspect. It's like most people just like read an abstract and then go and like post off whatever they want.
Yes.
And it's just, it all comes back. It's like information overload for the consumer. There's a million different people saying a million different things. Like, it's almost like you really have to pay attention to who you're following and what that environment is, from the news to social media.
100%. Just because you read an abstract doesn't mean crap. Like, there are methods, there are confounding factors, there are statistical methods, there is paid research. So, you got to realize, who is this person? Who funded the research? Who is funding the article? I've been blown away actually by some RDs who are paid by like the Dairy Council to post articles or be in like Self Magazine or Fitness and Health and all this stuff, and discuss like research on this. They work for the Dairy Council and they're pushing dairy. I'm like, stop. Or, they work for anti-GMO companies, and they're like, oh, GMOs are awful for you. I'm like, where's the ethics here?
Yeah, no,
sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, you're 100% right. Like, but this is, again, these were all influences, and why, like, I was just like, oh my God, like I can't be in a hospital setting. Like I was talking to somebody about something similar to that, and it was like a brand rep bringing something in. It was like, I don't even remember what it was. Something crazy, but yeah, you see all of these different, like, whether it's companies or RDs that are being supported by, big companies and getting paid, and then obviously them basically, influencing the public without giving all of the facts, all of the details. So yeah, I see that a lot. So I want to transition a little bit here. What are the most common things that you're seeing in kind of 2019 with nutrition? Like, I know you work with a lot of physique athletes and things like that. And so maybe that's a little bit more specific to that population, but what is like the state of nutrition in 2019?
So I would say I get a huge variety of people. I get people who want to do physique competitions, a lot of busy moms or busy college students who just want to lose weight or get into a new exercise routine. And then I see a lot of chronic conditions. I'm getting a lot of people with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, getting a lot of people with hypothalamic amenorrhea, so people who've lost their menstrual cycle for like greater than 3 months, a lot of hypothyroidism, a lot of Hashimoto's. And I think that also is dependent on the things that I put out in regards to like my knowledge, my education, things I'm personally interested in. But I'm seeing a lot of like chronic stress, a lot of adrenal issues, and a lot of people who just aren't taking care of themselves. And I don't mean just like food wise. I mean like overstressed, over dieted, not having proper sloth and rest time and just grinding themselves into the ground. And I'm having to fix a lot of, not fix, but help people to get back to, feeling normal, feeling their best. That's what I'm seeing a lot of.
Got it. Okay. So you're working with a pretty big demographic, actually, quite a few different populations.
I'm the opposite. Like most like quote unquote business people would say, find your niche. I'm like, no, screw the niche. I don't care. I want to work with a variety of people.
Yeah.
Keep
I
it
love that.
interesting.
Well, and that's been, I mean, yeah, I completely agree. It's it's all what all the gurus say, but it's hard to do. It's like, I want to help anybody and everybody that I possibly can help. Like, and
Exactly.
so, that's been a really hard thing. I'm still kind of working around and deciding if I even want to go down that route or not.
No, don't get a biz. People, there's a lot. It's a huge fad these days to say get a business coach. Honestly, like if you're doing well, you don't need one. Just do you.
Do you, boo?
Exactly. Your coaching will speak for itself. You don't need to do a bunch of ads or coaching calls or focus on like getting X, Y, and Z kind of clients because you need a niche. No, just focus on being a good coach and the results will speak for itself. And that will be your ads. That will be what brings you in clients because people see, hey, this person is getting results. This person loves who they're working with. I want that.
Yeah, 100%.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. Did you, speaking on for coaches now, so how long have you been coaching people like one-on-one or in person or online for? How long?
So I started in 2015. I took a couple clients. I started coaching for free. Then I started increasing my prices. And I coached as a student and it took up until I would say 2017. Once I got my bachelor's degree is when I started really building my coaching business.
Got it. That's cool. What's any advice for RDs out there that maybe are about to graduate and maybe they just listen to this podcast and maybe they're like, oh, well, I've never heard of like online coaching. What is that? Like, maybe I'm interested in that. Maybe I should dive into that. Like, what's some advice for those RDs?
Know what you want to do. That's my first, piece of advice. If you potentially want to be an online coach and have a second income while you're a dietitian or while you have a full-time job on the side, start. Don't be afraid to start because, I see a lot of people be delayed in developing something because they have what's called imposter syndrome. So they don't think they're good enough. They don't think they have enough information or they're not credentialed enough to start now. And at first I had that and I'm very glad I just said, what, screw it. I'm going to do it anyway because that's what's helped me learn the most is just diving in and going after it and coaching. So don't be afraid to start. That's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, I did the same exact thing. Like I've almost been in the field for 10 years now. And, when I first started getting on social media, I was like, oh no, I don't want to post this because I think blah, blah, blah might see it and read it and like not agree with it. And then I realized nobody that I care about is looking at or reading my stuff, like So, at the end of the day, it's like, I think asking yourself the question, like, am I really trying to do good in this world? Am I really trying to help people? Like, if that's the case, like, you're going to have haters and people that critique you or whatever else, but like, it's all part of the journey. And, I think that's one very important thing to realize, like, especially for new coaches is like, not all of us just, got here. It took a long time. Like my journey with nutrition and all of this began trying to essentially bulk up for college football after getting a scholarship and eating 5 chicken burritos a day from Taco Bell every single day, thinking that's how you put on weight. So, and then even getting into personal training, first year of that, I was eating like lean cuisines thinking I was healthy. So, we all have our journey, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything you think back to, like just kind of throughout your journey that you maybe thought was like something you were doing that was healthy or positive, and then maybe later realized that it wasn't so much, or even like a recommendation or anything like that?
Probably before I started actually doing research into nutrition, and I think I was like uh, 11th grade, and just thinking that all that mattered was calories. And I just remember I just ate a lot of carbohydrates and little protein. And I just wish I would have had the education, which is the whole problem with, high school nutrition education. But I wish I would have had the education to know that I needed dietary fat and protein in my diet and not just like carbohydrates. I was literally afraid of fat because I thought it would make me fat. I thought fat had no place in my diet because that's just the way, I was grown up. Low fat products, people saying don't eat dietary fat. That's what it was all over social media. That's what was all over magazines. So I wish I would have had somebody in my life who could have educated me on that.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that like I look forward to so much with, and we'll see how much they listen to me, but with our kids, and really like just from a very early age in the kitchen and like making the kitchen like a really like the most amazing room in the house, like get them interested in like cooking and like turn the music up and like make it fun, but like also be a resource for them so that they don't have to experience a lot of the things that people have gone through throughout their childhood and into high school and college with. And then after that, with body image issues and a negative relationship with food and all of these different types of things. So some of the conditions that you said that you were working with, did you ever like run across or experience any of that stuff yourself? Especially we were talking about a lot of these issues are coming from stress and just like running yourself into the ground. Well, we think back to what we did, you know what I mean? So maybe you were never like diagnosed with any of this stuff, but did you from a symptom standpoint, did you ever go through some of the similar symptoms that you're seeing in clients you're working with now, or?
Yeah. So what was funny is I started getting interested in it was my first couple months of my internship, and I was getting interested into thyroid health, adrenal health. And so I was reading all these textbooks, reading books, reading articles. And then I started having the symptoms: fatigue, muscle pain, joint pain, anxiety, really low energy, brain fog. I was having these symptoms. And then I was like, you know what? I should probably go get myself checked. I know I'm doing a lot of things. I know I'm pushing myself really hard. And that's when I went. Of course, my primary care doctor said, "Oh, you're fine. You're not hypothyroid. You're just fine. You look fine." And I looked, and yes, I was hypothyroid. So I am hypothyroid. I have hypothyroidism. I'm pretty sure that was exacerbated by stress and largely genetic based. So there was a trigger there because people in my family have had their thyroids removed. So I'm hypothyroid. I have primary amenorrhea. A lot of people don't know this because I don't discuss it. I don't feel like I need to because I'm going to get 5,000 questions. Every single time I mention it, I get 5,000 questions. But primary amenorrhea means you've never had a menstrual cycle in your life. So I've gone through a couple tests, ultrasounds, MRIs, progesterone challenges, medications, things to figure out, what could it be? But that's essentially why I'm so passionate about hypothalamic amenorrhea and making sure people know that the menstrual cycle is like a fifth vital sign. It's a part of who you are, and it tells your body, you're in decent health, you're in bad health, something's going on, because, not having your menstrual cycle for the most part is kind of like, it's like a fire alarm. If something is going right, there's going to be no fire alarm. But if you lose your menstrual cycle, that's your fire alarm going off saying, hey, there's something wrong. So that's why I'm kind of obsessed with hormones, with adrenal health, thyroid health, because I've had these problems myself.
Yeah, I was curious, and I didn't know that for sure, but now knowing that, it makes a lot of sense as to why you're so passionate about those areas. Because once you've gone through it and experienced it yourself, it's like, oh my God, I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that again.
Yeah,
so that's crazy. So
it was funny. I was interested in it before it was even me. I was like, I love thyroid health, and then I was like, did I make myself hypothyroid by being obsessed with thyroid health? I can't do that to myself, but find it
Yeah,
funny.
well, it is. I mean, it reminds me of my wife when every time she like feels something or whatever, and she'll like go look on like WebMD or something. I'm like, Al, you are a nurse, and yet you
Oh,
still
that's
do this.
hard for her because she's like, oh my gosh, my ovary's a little bit high. I have ovarian cancer.
Yeah, no, seriously,
Hard.
like the things I've heard throughout. I mean, we've been together forever, but I'm just like, Al, really? Like, anyways, that's a whole nother story. But hey, one thing I do, and I would love for you to take the time to describe is, I think that the menstrual cycle is something that a lot of women don't really have education around. Like they've maybe never actually been like taught like what it actually looks like. So could you maybe, for the listeners, for my female listeners out there, like what is a normal menstrual cycle? Like, can you kind of go through and describe the process of the menstrual cycle?
Yeah, so our menstrual cycle, it can range from about like 25 to 32 days is a normal menstrual cycle. And there are two phases in the menstrual cycle. So a couple of things happen physiologically, psychologically. So, and it's not exact because you can have the phases can be shorter or longer depending on your cycle and if you have something going wrong. But normally, so day one of your cycle will be when you bleed. So that's when your period comes. So day 1 to about day 14 is what we call the follicular phase. So this is when estrogen is predominating. There's about no progesterone levels. And this is when you're building up your uterine lining prior to what's called ovulation. So around day 14, I say around because it's not on specifically day 14. So on day 14 is when that follicle, because that's the follicular cycle, the follicle, quote unquote, ruptures, it explodes, and that is when the egg is going to start traveling to your uterus to be implanted. So on day 14, that's when that happens, and that is when LH and FSH levels spike up. And that's what triggers the ovulation. So when that happens, then you see a rise in progesterone levels. And so day 14 to like day 28, day 32, that's what's called the luteal phase. And this is when estrogen will go up and then go down. And that's when progesterone peaks. So progesterone is what's going to help really thicken that lining just in case you're pregnant. And then, of course, the corpus luteum will form, and then the baby will have its little birthplace to be. So that is a general outline of what happens in the menstrual cycle physiologically, psychologically, and then, the mental game. A lot of women, day 1 to day 14, they feel pretty good, minus, some people deal with PMS, but they're energized. They have a good amount of strength, and this is because of estrogen levels. And then day 14 is when they, around that, they're like hyper happy. That's because ovulation, making them rambunctious, I would say. And then day 14 to day 28, day 32 is when things kind of slow down. They feel, more secluded, more, a lot of people feel tired, a lot of inward type of things, and strength can take a hit. So that's what happens kind of like on a mental, psychological level.
That was beautiful. Love that. I think that was super simplified and hopefully easy to understand for the listeners there. So, Lacey, when you first kind of started digging into the symptoms of thyroid and then kind of figured out, well, really on your own that you were hypothyroid, you're not the only person this has happened to in terms of going to the doctor, right?
Mm.
So, what's your advice out there for maybe somebody that looked up thyroid symptoms, hypothyroid symptoms, or Hashimoto's or whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, they kind of had this eye-opening moment of that they're experiencing a lot of the symptoms, but they go to the doctor and the doctor comes back and says, nothing's wrong with you.
Yeah. So the most important thing to know is you have to be your own advocate. So sadly, there's a lot of doctors that are not going to run blood tests, and this because, they don't get kickbacks on it. Insurance doesn't, quote unquote, they'll say insurance won't cover it, but insurance will cover it. So you have to be your own advocate. And if you do not feel good, then know that and don't take, oh, your labs are fine for an answer. Also understand that there's a lot of conditions that seem like and have the same symptoms as others. So being hypothyroid can have the same symptoms as having low estrogen, or having high estrogen can have the same symptoms of adrenal fatigue. So there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind, and you always have to test, don't guess. So don't try and self-diagnose yourself. Know that you can always go on places like My Med Lab, Ulta Labs, and get your own blood work done. You don't have to use a doctor. And then know that you have to use reputable resources in what you're learning.
Love that. Lacey, what about the topic of, really, I guess this has been kind of related to a few different things, but what's your opinion? What's kind of the topic of kind of birth control in relation to PCOS, thyroid, some of these conditions here?
Oh, I am. Birth control gets me, man. I'm not a fan of birth control. Of course, if somebody wants to go that route because they don't want a child, I'm A-okay with that. But I hate that women are not told about the side effects of birth control. So birth control does not fix your acne. It does not fix your PCOS. It does not fix your periods or regulate your periods. Birth control is a synthetic hormone. It's not progesterone. It's not estrogen. Some have estrogen, but it does not act like the normal hormones in our body. And what it does is it prevents us from getting pregnant by stopping our natural hormone production and then slowing down processes in our body, like preventing cervical mucus from forming, or preventing your uterine lining from forming. And it actually can thin the uterine lining. So what's important to know is birth control is kind of like a Band-Aid on some problem that you have. And for the most part, for women, when they come off of birth control, then that problem, it just comes back with a fiery vengeance. So say somebody went in, when they were younger because they had PCOS. Well, that PCOS is going to come back with a vengeance once they come off that birth control. Birth control can lead to a variety of conditions, or can develop things like PCOS, depression, anxiety, nutrient deficiencies. It can cause premenstrual dysfunction disorder, PMDD. And then birth control can cause people to lose their cycle for a period of time. And, this is called post-birth control, PCOS. So there's a lot of things that can happen with birth control. And it's also important to remember that there's a lot of side effects based on which birth control that you choose to use.
Got it. That makes sense. And, one thing that kind of sparked in my mind was what you said earlier, because you said, obviously with the menstrual cycle, if we don't have a menstrual cycle, that's basically, that's a bad sign, right? And so if I don't have a menstrual cycle due to birth control, then I don't really have that thing anymore in my life to kind of let me know, right? So,
yeah, and birth control, what it would do is it would just regulate your cycle based on that synthetic production. So yes, you wouldn't have that marker saying, hey, something's going on.
Right. So what about the, the individual that then says, well, I've been on birth control for 5-10 years or whatever. And maybe you're scared to death to be able to come off of birth control because they're scared of all the side effects coming up. Is there a better way to go about getting off birth control or cycling off if that's the route that you want to go?
Yeah. So first off, you need to make sure you discuss with your doctor. I always say that regardless if the doctor's going to agree or not, make sure you discuss with your doctor. And then know getting off birth control can be a process. So you're probably going to have heightened symptoms. You're going to have acne. You're going to have digestive issues because coming off birth control, what can happen is birth control depletes your body of things like testosterone. So when you come off of it, testosterone is going to start upregulating and that can cause some acne. Also, birth control can cause gut issues. It can cause dysbiosis. It can cause, what was the other thing I was going to say? I forgot. Oh, it can create problems with liver health and detoxification of those synthetic estrogens and progestins. But when you come off of it, the most important thing you need to do is start focusing on a whole nutritious diet. Make sure that you are giving your body what it needs to detoxify those things. So making sure that you have cruciferous vegetables, which have like DIM in them. DIM helps to detoxify, and it's very good for your liver health. Incorporating things like N-acetylcysteine or milk thistle, this will help, but a huge focus is providing your body with the nutrients that it needs. So I like to say, fix on detoxification and repletion of things that are common deficiencies like B6, magnesium, zinc, folate, making sure you're repleting, and that way you're able to give your body what it needs to start upregulating all these processes by itself. It can take some time for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll be the first one to say, my wife was on birth control for 10 years. And a little over a year ago, we decided to, slowly kind of start the process of getting her off. We use the Daisy. I'm sure you've heard of that.
I love the Daisy.
We did too. And I will say, we probably maybe weren't as careful as we should have been, but we got the Daisy and all of these things. And we actually, Josiah was a surprise because we weren't planning on having a child then. We were planning on maybe 2 years later or so. Obviously, it's such a blessing, and nothing ever works on our schedule, right? But, I'll just say, like, if you have the audacity to want to get off of birth control, like, having a baby is a very real thing. Mm-hmm. And, don't take that lightly. Like, make sure that you do your due diligence with this whole process if that's what you choose to do, and don't mess around because you could have a little Josiah pop up at any moment.
People have to do their research. Fertility awareness method is not something, it's not just checking your body temperatures every single day, logging into an app and saying, oh, it says green, that means go. Or it says red, no sex today. No, it's about really, honoring your body, listening to your body, looking at things like cervical mucus, even though this is disgusting to say or think about, like looking at, what comes out of your body, looking at your body temperature, seeing how you feel. And you have to really look at all these symptoms. So there's a book that's called The Fifth Vital Sign. It just came out by Lisa Hendrickson Jack. Fantastic book for anybody who wants to do fertility awareness method. You have to read that book because it literally will tell you anything and everything you need to know in regards to staying, knowing what are your fertile days, what are your non-fertile days. And not because you don't, like you said, you don't need to go just off of an app because that can lead to, babies out of nowhere.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it was that. It was like you look at it and it's like, oh, green light, good to go. Yeah. And no, like don't be naive like we were.
Yeah, but what's funny is like growing up, and women don't know this, when we're in high school, when we're in middle school, we're taught that women can get pregnant like any day of the month, which I think is crazy. And of course, I don't want them thinking that being like, okay, hey, fertility awareness method now, that means I can go have sex whenever I want. But I think it's crazy that the lack of education is there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think lack of education, that's the phrase, right? There's lack of education in so many areas, and that's why we have these issues arise. So
there's lack of finance education. There's like no high schoolers that even know how to write a check or pay their bills.
Yep. No, I completely agree. If nutrition and finance could be implemented into the schooling system through elementary, middle school, high school, that would be phenomenal.
It would be. We had finance. Very lucky that we had finance. I loved that class. We did stocks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that got me very excited because I love stocks. But we definitely need more of that.
Yeah. Luckily, I was the just entrepreneur from a very young age, the lemonade stands, the selling baseball cards,
nice.
I was also a bad kid. I got into a lot of the bad things too, but it was always just selling things was always like something that was really big to me. So I guess I never got formal financial, but I kind of learned along the way. But Hey, I could probably sit here and talk to you all day long and ask you a million questions, but I definitely want to respect your time. I want to dive into one last topic though, because it's something I see you talk about a lot and I just absolutely love it because I think it's so important. And that's the topic of essentially, self-love, right? And like, just like having a positive relationship with your body and with food. So, we work with a lot of, probably 80% of the clients we work with are women. And I'm sure you work with a lot of women as well, and men too. Like, we need it too. But what's your just, I don't know, biggest takeaways, biggest piece of advice around that whole subject, and the conversations that you're having with yourself in your head, that internal dialogue, and the things that you say to yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror, and all that different type of stuff.
Yeah, so self-love is a daily thing that you have to choose, and it's not easy. So every single morning when you wake up, you have the choice to either be your best friend or your worst enemy. And that's something that is not an easy choice, but it's something you have to, make that choice every single day. And in making that choice, it's not about loving your body, for what it looks like. It's loving your body and respecting it for what it does for you on a daily basis. So knowing that you are beautifully and wonderfully made and that your body fights for you every single day. So when you go out, when you go grocery shopping, you touch all these disgusting things, you get all these germs, pathogens. Your body has to fight all that. Your body has to walk all the way over. It lifts weights, it runs. So it's all about coming from a place of respect, and respect forms that love. So I like to say to people every single day, you really have to recognize that your body is a blessing and be grateful for it, regardless of what you think it is like, whether it meets the quote unquote standard. You have to realize that that standard doesn't matter. Whatever social media, whatever anyone says does not matter, because your body's always awesome. It's always beautiful. You should always love and respect it for what it does. And then know that your own standard is what has to be set. Once you set your own standard and you become the master of your own mindset, and you focus on positivity and gratefulness, and you make that a habit, that's when you are able to really tackle that self-love. I see a lot of times people are like, oh, because I lose this X amount of weight, or I do a bikini competition, I'm going to love myself. That's not how it works. Self-love is something that won't come just because you get to your goal. It's something that you have to cultivate and form before you get to your goal, because in reaching that goal, it doesn't teach you anything. You have to really respect your body now and love it that way. I made a quote on Instagram the other day, and I said, loving your body isn't just about thinking your body is good. It's knowing your body is good regardless of how it looks. So it's all about that love and respect, and loving and respecting yourself, not because of how you look, but who you are as a person.
I love that. I love that. I think one simple question I try to ask myself every single day is, am I treating myself well?
And are you treating yourself the way you would treat your son?
Yeah, 100%.
Because I know you wouldn't be like waking up in the morning, you're like, oh, I feel a little fat. You wouldn't say that to your son.
Right. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I mean, it's just, whether you're religious or not, I mean, obviously there's a big aspect to that, just like honoring your own body. And, I think that like, it's just, we get one life. That's it. We get one opportunity. We have one body, and, we can either treat it like crap and, maybe live a life that we're going to regret later on, or we can just embrace every single day and try to live our life to the best and treat our bodies well. And, just try to fall in love with the process, the journey, because we got a long time. This isn't just 30 days.
Mm-hmm. And everybody's all about reaching their health and fitness goals. But you know what? True health does not happen unless you have a healthy mindset, a healthy relationship with yourself, a healthy relationship with food, and a healthy mindset.
Absolutely.
People forget about that 100%. And it's very important to me. Your mindset and how you look at yourself and how you think about others too is more important than what you ever look like.
100%. I love that. So somebody that's struggling with that negative self-talk right now, and they've been dealing with it for a while. What can they literally go and do right now in this moment to start shifting that mindset from essentially from scarcity to abundancy, and trying to really embrace that?
I'm going to go out on a whim and say, find Jesus, because he is going to provide you with what's missing in your life. He's going to fill that hole in your heart, which is why you feel sad, depressed, why you feel like you aren't good enough. Because once Jesus fills that hole, you know that you are always good enough. You are always loved, and it does not matter what you look like or what you do. You are always worthy. But another thing that you can do is use self-help books. Rachel Hollis, Girl Wash Your Face is phenomenal. I Declare War by Levi Lusko is fantastic. So there's a lot of fantastic books that you can read. And also making sure that every single day you wake up, I like to say this to my clients, write one thing that you love about yourself and then one thing you are grateful for in your life that is not something to do with yourself. So it's about cultivating and making that a habit to be grateful and thankful.
I love that. Oh man, so refreshing talking to you. I feel like it's just a breath of fresh air. So Lacey, again, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know that the audience is going to get so much out of this, and I want them to be able to connect with you and find you and listen to your podcast and all of these things. So where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was such a pleasure, and I've got to talk about things that I never get to talk about, which is fun. I don't really go into my story much. I tend to think that doesn't matter. So thank you for letting me discuss about my life. And I hate my cat didn't make a crazy appearance. But anyways, if anybody wants to connect with me, get help, go listen to my own podcast or look at my Instagram. My goal is educating others, uplifting others. That's why my company name is UplfitFit Nutrition, because my goal is to help uplift you in your life. That way you can go out and uplift others in their lives. So spreading the love in all ways. But my Instagram is at Faith and Fit. My podcast and my website is UplfitFit Nutrition. That's www.upliftfit.org. I also have a Twitter. I like to tweet things that are either related to annoyances in my life, like people driving really slow, or nutrition education, or just random things like my cats. So that's at Lacey A. Dunn. And I cannot promise that everything is always going to be nutrition or fitness related in my content. I just kind of am who I am, and hopefully you're okay with looking at me without makeup and being a sloth. So
I love it. Well, Lacey, again, thank you so much. You're just a pure soul, and it was a pleasure to talk to you today. Obviously we met for the first time virtually here, but thank you so much. And yeah, I really appreciate you.
Oh no, thank you. And all the best with your little one. I hope you can get some sleep.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. My wife is she's an angel. She's taken on most of the load, but once she goes back to work, it should be interesting.
Ooh, yes. You'll have to make it work.